Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back to our study in Esther yet again. We left off last week. Haman, yeah, it's been several weeks, hasn't it? Yeah, we're in chapter 8. Good job, Peter. Chapter 8. We left off. Haman had been killed. He had been hung on the gallows, but we did not find out about how the king could spare Esther. What's going to happen to Esther and to Mordecai and all the Jews if a decree has already been sent out? Chapter 8, verse 1 says, "On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman the Jews' enemy unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her." So, the Jews, Mordecai and Esther are Jews, and Esther tells the king, Mordecai, that one who sat in the gate, that one who spared your life is related to me. And so the king actually has Mordecai come on into the palace, and he gives the nice things that had been Haman's, he actually gives those to Mordecai. He gives him the ring and nice fancy clothes and robes, and he gives him a place of position in the palace. Boys and girls, when we think about Haman and how he wanted to kill Mordecai, and that was his plan, and now Mordecai is the one who takes his place. Just kind of ironic to see in a way how God works there, and how Haman's house has now been given to Esther, a Jew. So now Jews are going to live in his house. The very people that he tried to destroy now had his house. Verse 3. "And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews." Boys and girls, before we get to verse 4, she has come before the king again without him calling her. So do you remember what has to be done in order for her life to be spared? Yeah, that's right. The king has to hold out his scepter. Now, thankfully, that's exactly how verse 4 starts out. The king holds out his scepter. He loves Esther. Holds out his scepter, and she gets up, she rises, she comes to talk to him, and she's like, what can we do? How are we going to settle this? Because this decree has gone out to all the provinces. So the king basically says he's giving all the power that Haman had. He's giving that to Mordecai. He's giving the ring, and he says, have whatever you want to be written down so that you can defend yourselves when they come to attack you. So the king basically puts his blessing on Mordecai and on Esther and says, write it how you need to write it so that you can fight back in the day that was appointed for the Jews to be attacked. So all the scribes come. They did not have copy machines like we do today. Sometimes we get frustrated when the copy machine jams. But think about if you had to write all this out by hand so it could be delivered. You can't mass send out an email or a text. It's got to be handwritten and then distributed. And by the way, there's no planes or cars or Amazon delivery trucks, okay? They had to deliver it, and it tells us even the animals that they use, the detail that God gives in his word. Verse 10, "And he wrote in the king Ahasuerus' name, and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback, and riders on mules, camels, and young dromedaries." So he even tells us, oh, sorry, Peter, not young pandas. Pandas, I don't think you'd want someone to ride on your back, Peter. So they were going to go deliver the message that Mordecai had put together. The king commanded, verse 11, there you go, ride your horse. Verse 11, "Wherein the king granted the Jews, which were in every city, to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy, to slay, and to cause to perish all the power of the people and province that would assault them, both little ones and women, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar." So he says the Jews can stand up for themselves. If somebody comes after them, they can stand up for themselves. And he sends this message out to all the provinces. They all got a copy of that message. Verse 14 tells us they did that. Okay, they went out and they delivered the message like they had said. So verse 15, and Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, and with a great crown of gold, and with a garment of fine linen and purple, and the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. Verse 16, the Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor. Boys and girls, they had prayed, they had sought God, they had fasted, and now they're getting their answer. God is protecting them. God is blessing them. God is taking care of them. And it says in the city of Shushan, which isn't even a Jewish city, but that city was rejoicing because right was being done. Evil was being punished and right was being rewarded. God had Esther in the right place at the right time. Esther willingly obeyed God after going to him in prayer and asking others to pray for her as well. She had taken that 3 days. She had asked people to pray for her. She had prayed, and then she obeyed, boys and girls. She did what was right. God protected Esther, and God protected his people. God not only protects the Jews, but he protects us too. God wants us to seek him and to obey him like Esther did. How are you going to obey this week, boys and girls? How are you going to honor God? Are you going to pray? Are you going to take time to ask God for wisdom on what you should do? Or are you going to just do your own thing? Boys and girls, I hope you'll take time this week to pray, ask God for guidance, and then that you would obey the commands you already know he's given you in his word. See you next week, boys.